G'day there guys, Connie here. We're reading Reddit today. Hope that's cool with you. Let's go right into it. Okay, well, on Am I the A-hole? This one was written by user Lost Coconut and it's titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my partner's best friend sleep in one of our spare bedrooms while she's getting divorced? My girlfriend, Anna, 32, all names changed by the way, and I, 35 male, are currently living in a house that I owned since before the start of our relationship. Anna's best friend, Catherine, 33, and I never really got along, partially maybe because we're very different types of people, but primarily it's because she doesn't approve of the fact that Anna and I have an open relationship. Ever since Anna disclosed this fact to Catherine, she accused me of cheating and that I pressured Anna into it. Our interactions have gone from frosty to cold. And just to set the record straight, it's not cheating. Cheating absolutely exists in open relationships. The thresholds are just set through discussion, and neither of us ever did anything that's against these agreed upon hard rules ever. Also, neither one of us has pressured the other one. We just had a conversation early in our relationship why our previous relationships failed, and realized that both of us struggled with relationships getting routine, and we weren't ready to mothball the thrill and excitement of meeting and dating new people yet. As we're both not particularly jealous people, we decided to try a non-monogamous relationship, and it worked well for us ever since. I also already tried explaining this to Catherine once or twice, so from my point of view, I did my due diligence to have a good relationship with her, but her perception of that might differ. Anyways, last week Anna had an unexpected emergency call from Catherine, and as it turns out, she's serving her hubby with divorce papers because he had a secret affair over the last few months. As a good friend does, Anna immediately invited her friend to stay at our place for a few weeks until things are sorted out. Catherine doesn't have family here, but we both have beds in our respective home offices, and so in her mind, it was the perfect solution. When Anna told me a few minutes after the call, I quickly had to pump the brakes. I'm not going to lie, that the idea of having a hostile house guest in my own home isn't unappealing on its own already, but that's not even my main reason. Both Anna and I have friends with benefits/secondary partners that occasionally stay over when Anna works night shift or I'm travelling for work, and they also visit just for the occasional platonic movie night or dinner party. Friends with benefits are friends after all. Now, having Catherine here would mean we'd either have to significantly scale back these relationships for an undetermined length of time, or have them over anyways, as I imagine Catherine is probably even less tolerant towards perceived infidelity right now. That would probably just be a crappy to hostile experience for our other partners. Both of these things, to me, sound unfair towards me and our secondary relationships, as we always saw these as real relationships that deserve respect and consideration just as much as our relationship, within some increments of prioritization, of course. I told Anna that I don't want Catherine living here. Anna pretty much saw my reasoning right away, and given that I own the house, apologized for her rushed invitation and called Catherine to take it back. But since then, the situation has gotten out of hand, to be honest. Our friends are pretty much split along the lines of, it's your house, and, wow, you put Catherine on the streets just because of your side chicks? And Catherine kicked the conversation up an additional notch by insinuating that I'm trying to isolate Anna from her, and just said no because I hate that they're friends. For the record, I never had a problem with their friendship, nor did I ever do anything to limit it. Anyways, I'm increasingly starting to wonder if my objection has been worth it and the right call, or if it's been unfair towards Catherine. So, am I the a-hole? Edit, maybe to clarify, Catherine has never been outwardly aggressive or offensive against me. It's always been insinuations and probably gossip. Now, Opie's got his reasons which are valid, and he's under no obligation to help out Catherine in this regard. I'm sure there's plenty of other places she could turn to. Let's see the comments. You explained your reasoning to Anna and she agreed with your perspective. You both agreed to not host Catherine. The reason is not important. Why are other people involved? Catherine is an adult. She is able to resolve her own problems. Ask Anna to deal with Catherine's nonsense, not the a-hole. If there is any judgment here, it has to be against Anna. She has allowed Catherine to believe that she has been manipulated into a lifestyle that she doesn't agree with. She has failed over a period of time to correct Catherine's beliefs around your relationship. Now she makes decisions regarding your living arrangements without consulting you. Of course, the real problem is whether the conversations they share are the reason that Catherine has the views that she has, and that Anna isn't as enamored with your open relationship as she's leading you to believe. Not the a-hole. You cannot be hostile to a person, then expect that person to open their home to you when things are tough. GTFO with that craziness. You aren't putting Catherine on the street due to your side chicks. You are not allowing someone who's openly hostile to you to invade your private space. There's a big difference. I'd tell everyone, Catherine included, that the people who live in the home discussed the matter at hand and came to an agreement, and their comments aren't necessary because the matter is closed. Not the a-hole. Okay, Opie answers some questions. Why are other people involved? Because Catherine looped in additional friends against my and our will. Catherine is an adult, she is able to resolve her own problems. Yeah, I'd love to do that, but I'd feel much more comfortable if this situation is resolved, or at least pacified too. We disclosed our relationship status on basically a need-to-know basis, and my worry is that Catherine might actually make it known to people that don't know yet if she continues and this keeps spiraling. But that's a separate dilemma. Not the a-hole. It should have been discussed with you prior to offering, but Anna seems pretty rational and course-corrected. There are plenty of ways for Anna to support Catherine other than to bring this person into your home that judges you and does not accept your relationship. Your objection is worth it, as it sounds like if Catherine moves in for a term, she will serve to cause you problems and frustration. Opie replies, given how much she's already managing to do that from the outside, inviting her in is basically out of the question at this point. My ideas for extending the olive branch would have been apologising, maybe trying to find an apartment, or a very short stay. Not the a-hole, and Catherine's reaction is all the proof you needed to keep her out of your house. Also, you're not making her homeless. She is. She could have told the cheater to leave. Opie says, actually one of my compromises I suggested when telling Anna no was to take in Catherine's hubby for a month on a purely functional, a bed-to-sleep basis. But basically Catherine doesn't want to be at their shared home right now because the affair also took place there. Ah, I see. But yeah, like some comments said, I feel like she can sort this out herself. I'm sure Anna and Opie's good graces isn't the last thing that's stopping her from sleeping in a gutter. Let's go to an update. I figured I'd be giving an update because I still get X upvotes notifications from my initial post somehow. The responses were also actually kinda helpful, so I'd also like to say thanks and share the outcome. It was reassuring that so many people agreed we weren't out of line, and we should stick with our decision. Even more helpful were the questions why we didn't turn the tables, got in front of the supposed backlash, more on that later, and said, well, why don't you host her then? What can I say except that we're not located somewhere where everyone from your barber to your second cousin will blow up your inbox and socials and call you an a-hole to your face on behalf of a third party. We only heard about the criticism against us through the grapevine, and we didn't really have a specific person to say, well then you take her too. But after reading your comments, Anna got the idea to let out a WhatsApp broadcast to our shared friend group. It basically said that we're feeling very guilty because of Catherine's situation. Very guilty because of Catherine's situation, and that it was crappy to make a promise and then take it back. But we simply realised that our lifestyle seems like it might be triggering to her in her current situation, and that would be uncomfortable for everyone involved. But we'd be happy to help anyone who'll take her in whatever way we can. Cue the crickets. That was the moment we realised that maybe there were less people on Catherine's side than we initially assumed. Actually, only one couple, who were friends with both Catherine and her hubby, reached out to invite us to dinner, apparently to share some things we weren't aware of yet. First of all, according to them, the affair wasn't the carnal thing Catherine made it out to be, and more of a falling out of love situation on the husband's side that has been long coming. Basically, he met someone, and that made him realise that his marriage was dead, and he did the moral thing and broke up with Catherine. No one is 100% sure if there's been something physical before, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was all in Catherine's head. There's also apparently a very juicy reason why he gets to keep staying in the house, but this update is long enough already. Anyways, as for the whole smear campaign lodged against us, turns out that the whole drama apparently consisted of only 3 things. Catherine trying to pressure us and, consciously or unconsciously, sowing rumours that everybody is really angry with us, a single couple that stood on Catherine's side, and a lot of people hoping to not get pulled into a war of roses and just nodding politely. The couple that was on Catherine's side are the friends that Catherine hit up right after us, by the way. The dinner party friends theory is that they threw us under the bus and fed into Catherine's outrage because that couple has a young daughter, and we know for a fact that Catherine has just as many Karen-style convictions about parenting as she has about relationship styles. Anyways, Catherine is now basically ostracised, moved in with family a bit outside the city, and is working remotely until she finds a condo to haunt this city from again. I also want to clarify a few things from the original post. To the people that insinuated that I pressured Anna into this relationship or keep her on a short leash, given how non-monogamous dating works out for different genders, trust me when I tell you she isn't lacking options to get out of this relationship if she wanted. To the ones that criticised her for not standing up for me, I consciously didn't want to include this part because I didn't want to invite judgment of Anna. Yeah, hindsight is 20/20, but that has been a dicey subject in our relationship. But after having Anna's explicit permission to share this here now, there's actually a lot of backstory with Catherine adopting a loner Anna into her friend group back in their school days, and Anna somehow still feeling like she needed to earn her place in the friend group / be grateful for Catherine. She's currently looking into going to therapy for that. Finally, I want to add a last bit of positive news coming out of this crap show. This whole fiasco made Anna and me talk through the whole someone else moving in topic. It's not really something we're going to do in the near future, but Anna told me that there's one person she's currently seeing with whom she might eventually be moving into that direction, and this time she asked me early if I'd be okay with her moving in with us somewhere in the future. Hinge, not throuple for the people that speak poly on here. I kind of like that Catherine would probably hate that this is the outcome of her whole tantrum, but other than that, I'm really happy things are mainly back to normal now. One comment says, "Oh, come on, what's the juicy reason, lol?" Opie says, "Allegedly, Catherine's husband was the one carrying their marriage financially and shouldering the vast majority of fixed expenses, despite both of them working and not that big of an earnings discrepancy between the two of them. So when she wanted to kick him out, he apparently said, 'Sure, I'll let you know when you need to pay what to keep everything running.' Catherine goes surprised Pikachu-faced at the fact divorce means paying for your own living expenses and agrees to downsize in exchange for moving out and him buying her out of the house eventually. Basically, she was living above her means somehow. No idea where her money went, though." Alrighty, folks, and that's the end of that story. Catherine sounds like one of those people that just invite drama into her life and then complain about too much drama happening around them. Also, another crazy thing, a Reddit post about a non-monogamous relationship that ended well for them. Geez, that's rare. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Let me know down below. Anyway, let's move on to another one. Alrighty, same subreddit. This one was written by user Reddy405, and it's titled, "Am I the a-hole for feeling like my eldest daughter should be treated the same as my real children? When my, male 45, daughter, 13, was born, I immediately felt that something was obviously amiss. She was blonde-haired and blue-eyed, which was extremely unlikely for a child of myself and my ex-wife, 39. I'm very Mediterranean, and I have olive skin, dark eyes, and dark hair. My ex-wife has brown eyes and relatively dark brown hair. Her skin is barely lighter than mine. The baby also clearly bore no resemblance to me or anyone in my family at all. I've been having misgivings about my ex too, and she seemed too quick to express surprise and make excuses. Still though, I didn't want to throw away my marriage over what could have been my own misunderstanding of genetics, and so I signed the birth certificate. I instantly knew that I was going to have a paternity test done, but something else surprised me. When I brought our little girl home, I still fell in love with her. It felt just like bringing my son home, and, looking at her, I still just saw her as an innocent, beautiful little baby. We bonded. The paternity test came back negative, as I suspected it would, and I decided that our marriage was over. I still loved our little girl though. My then wife did everything that she could to drag out the divorce and refused to separate or move out. My daughter's biological father, every bit as blonde and blue-eyed as I suspected, turned out to want nothing to do with her or my ex. He was already married with his own family, and his only focus was preventing the situation from blowing back on himself too much. My ex went totally nuts when both I and her affair partner rejected her, and she made some very unfortunate decisions. To make a long story short, she ended up with prison time for crimes including identity theft, assault with a deadly weapon, and grand theft auto, when she stole credit cards and forged documents for both of us, and when she stole her affair partner's car and tried to run him over with it. I ended up with custody of our kids, with the affair partner never even attempting to establish any kind of paternity rights. I didn't want to press the issue myself, as I couldn't deny that I'd bonded with this child, even knowing that she wasn't my real daughter. I had been shunning my ex-wife as best I could and trying to move on with life. After she was finally out of the house, it wasn't long before I got together with and married my current wife, 34, and we've since had another 2 children, male 10 and female 8. My eldest daughter is a total daddy's girl, and we have a wonderful relationship. She always feels loved, and I treat her the same as my other kids. Even though she obviously stands out, my family accepts her too, or at least that's what I thought. I work for my father's company, and the other day we were out talking about the future and his will, and he was talking about what money and assets etc. he wanted to leave to whom, including his grandchildren, and I noticed that my older daughter had been left out. I mentioned it to him, and he said, "It's nice what you've done for her, but you have real children, and obviously they should come first." I interrupted him, and I told him that she is my real daughter, and that I thought she should be treated equally. He just paused and looked at me for a moment, and he said, "I guess you feel how you feel," before he noticed I was still about to argue with him, and he shrugged and moved the conversation onto things about work and my siblings. I was too polite to try to force the matter at the time, but it sort of stuck with me. My father isn't the type of man to harp on a point, and I'm certain that he's content to have said his piece and would let the matter drop. He could certainly tell that what he said upset me, and so I doubt he'd bring it up again. Frankly, he sort of raised me the same way. At the time, I was shocked because he's always seemed to accept my daughter as part of my family. He buys her gifts for her birthday and for Christmas, and he makes her feel welcome. But thinking about it, he really is just a kind, polite and generous man in a lot of ways. He will and has bought Christmas gifts for high school friends or significant others if he knew they were coming, and the same for other gift-giving occasions. He's generally very hospitable to anyone his friends or family bring around, so I thought that maybe it was just that, and I misinterpreted. My wife is Asian, and so my eldest daughter always stands out. She's thin and blonde and blue-eyed, unlike pretty much anyone else in my family, and she's taller than any of the other girls or even most of the women really, so I'm aware that she might look like the neighbour's kid visiting or something. My wife loves her, and I know that she 100% accepts her as one of our kids, and she has been a great mum and stepmom. I talk to my own mother though, and while she's definitely closer to my daughter than my father is, they interact a lot more, and she includes my daughter with the other kids and other girls in family traditions and activities. I got a little bit of the same vibe from her. She was much more diplomatic, but it seems like she may also sort of consider my daughter to be sort of a guest or unfortunate orphan I'm hosting or something like that. She pointed out that I can make my own will however I want. My daughter knows that she isn't biologically mine. That would have been hard to hide, even if we'd really had the opportunity. She doesn't want anything to do with either of her biological parents though. She's seen her bio dad perhaps a handful of times in her entire life, and I don't even think he can remember her middle name. He seems to have pretty successfully kept his family together and his wife from leaving him, but he definitely doesn't want any involvement. My ex-wife continued to spiral for a long time, and she lives in another state with another man and her own new family at this point. She mercifully rarely makes contact. I never really tried to go after either of them for money. I don't need it, and it's not a pot I want to stir. My siblings are mostly supportive, if a little bit mixed on the issue. Some of them say that they could never raise the child of a partner's affair, but all of them say that they love and accept their niece. I just can't get over the way that I feel distant and upset about what my father said though. He's an extremely kind and generous man, and he's always taken care of his family. He's given me opportunities and a lifestyle that I could never have had achieved without him. I love him and I look up to him. Maybe that's why I feel sort of, I don't know, betrayed? It feels wrong that she's the only one of his grandchildren to be left out of his will, apparently because he doesn't consider her a real grandchild. Intellectually, I can accept that he's technically correct, but it feels wrong. She is my daughter. Am I wrong though? Am I just being entitled and unreasonable here? Am I the a-hole? Yeah, I don't know, it's definitely one of those things where people outside of the relationship and looking inwards can definitely form their own opinions and feel like that's right for them, you know? Like even OP in the past probably had the same reservations about raising a child that's not his, but unless you've lived it like he has, then it would be hard to be sure. And it's clear the family don't see and feel the same love to her that he does, and what a shame that is. Let's go to the comments. I get why members of your family might consider you foolish for raising the result of your ex-wife's affair, but honestly, it speaks well of your character that you treat her as your own. I wonder if your parents would be similarly non-accepting if you'd adopted a child, because practically, that is what happened. I wish you and your family the best, not the a-hole. My stepmother did this for me, although I wasn't an affair child. My father died when I was 15, and my birth mother spent most of her life institutionalized for mental health concerns. My stepmother, like you, was a saint. You'll probably never really fully know the good you have done. No, you're a goddamn saint. Problem is, you're thinking other people will be saints too, and they're not. Their reactions are understandable, but it makes me sad for her when she eventually learns the truth of how they see her. There's no way in hell that you're the a-hole. She is your daughter. Blood does not make a family. Love does. It's a shame your parents don't know better. You're not wrong. How do you watch this child grow up from a baby and think of them as some kind of other? Yeah, 100%. On to an update. Just a small update. Thanks for the comments and wishes. It really put a lot of things into perspective, and it confirmed to me that I needed to say something. Some people seem surprised at the way I let my daughter's bio parents off the hook, so to speak. The main reason I've never tried to go after my ex or her affair partner for child support is that my daughter is more important than money. I'm not struggling at all, and I have the support I need. More importantly though, I have my daughter. Even though the affair partner didn't apparently want anything to do with her, my lawyer did mention way back in the day that either he or my wife, being her biological parents, could have a strong case for seeking custody. I know I'm biased, but her bio dad seems like a huge a-hole, and I know he doesn't care about her. I wouldn't put it past him to try to get custody just to duck out of paying child support though, if his hand was forced. And the idea of her having to go stay with him is just something I don't even want to think about. Kind of the same thing when her mum got out of prison. She seemed like she was very quick to go shack up with her new guy, and she seemed willing to let the matter lie, so I did the same. The fact that neither of them tried to get her, or in my ex's case, the way she hasn't even bothered to keep much contact with our son either, tells me more than everything I need to know about the kind of parents they are and would be. They only seem interested in their pre-existing or new families respectively. I wouldn't want to try to back them into trying to take custody. With my daughter being 13, it's possible that we've sort of run out the clock on that matter, but it's still not a drama we need or a risk worth taking. In better and more important news though, I talked with my dad. I met with my father for lunch, which was easy enough as he's around most days and we could sync up sometime. I mentioned that I wanted to talk about my daughter not being in his will, and I told him that even if it meant dividing what was being left to me or my other kids, I felt it was really important for her to be included. I also mentioned, as I felt, and as a lot of people pointed out, that it would be devastating for her to find out that she'd been excluded after his death. My father agreed that that was a really good point, and he said that she is a lovely girl, that he does love her, and that he wouldn't want to add extra pain or bitterness to her life, especially at such a time. Also, it had gotten around to him that I'd sort of been polling my siblings a little bit, and I think my mum talked to him some, and he said, "This is obviously very important to you. You're my son. I can just change it. It's not so much money anyway." And he was right. The amounts of money being left to individual grandchildren aren't massive, but the gesture and the thought are what's most meaningful. Mostly everything is going to my mum and or us, his kids anyway. Really, there was no reason for me to expect him to have been stubborn or hard-hearted about any of this. It was just something that we needed to talk about. My father reiterated that everyone loves my daughter and that she'll always be family and always have a home. He has a gold bracelet that he has worn somewhat occasionally over the years, and he mentioned that my daughter thought it was pretty. When she was very little, she noticed it on his wrist and said that jewellery was for girls. He laughed and explained to her that sometimes boys wear jewellery too. She thought it was nice and he let her try it on, even though it was way too big for her wrist. She was a little toddler then. I didn't know anything about that moment between them, and I thought it was really sweet that he remembered. He said that he was going to leave her the bracelet and a note, and that as far as money goes, she'd get the same share as the rest of my kids. So we had a nice lunch, and we both felt better for it. Nothing too dramatic, but really the best way things could have gone. Thanks everyone for confirming that I wasn't being crazy, and confirming that I needed to talk to my father and set things right. One comment says, "This is a happy update. Your father is a good man, and he raised you to be a wonderful man." And another comment says, "This is such a beautiful update. I'm so glad you were able to talk it out." Yeah, as am I. What about you guys? I'm so glad that Opie could get the thought across to his father, and that he ultimately accepted it. Yeah, love a happy ending. It's been a while, I feel. Alright, let's move on. Okay, for a bit of an oldie from the Am I the A-hole subreddit, this one was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, "Would I be the a-hole if I asked a member of the wedding party to wear something to cover their hair?" I'm getting married this fall, Rona willing. One member of the wedding party has neon yellow-green hair, and has said they plan on keeping that colour for the foreseeable future, including for the wedding. I did not know this person has dyed their hair until after I'd asked them to be in the wedding party. They've dyed their hair a few times in the past, but never their whole head, more of just highlights or ombre and low-key stuff, and never a colour this bright, so honestly I just didn't see it coming. Everyone else has more muted colours of hair, and the dresses and tuxes are also on the grayscale, so it's going to stand out. I know it's just hair, it's their choice, and I'm trying to be as respectful as possible. However, I also frankly don't want to look at my wedding pictures for the rest of my life and have the first thing I notice be their neon friggin' hair. It seriously draws the eye. Ideas we have come up with to mitigate this. 1. Make all the photos of the wedding party be in black and white. 2. Ask the photographer to edit this person's hair to a not neon yellow-green colour, which may also be an a-hole move. I still feel weird about that. Opinions welcome. Or 3. The option someone proposed that I'm really conflicted about, ask the person to wear a wide lace headband or wrap that covers most of their hair and style it pulled back so it's more or less tucked away for most of the pictures. If it matters, we bought and rented dresses and tuxes for everyone and would pay for this accessory too, and we're paying for hair to be done professionally for the wedding party, because if I'm going to ask people to look a certain way for an event for me, I don't want to then force them to pay to do it. But I can't tell if this would be taking my input a step too far. It was a little awkward when I asked how long they were planning to keep their hair neon, and I just asked coming from a place of curiosity and not asking specifically about the wedding, so I think they might get mad at me if I asked them to more or less hide it. Would I be the a-hole if I asked this person to wear a hairpiece and style that covers most of their neon hair for my wedding? Edit to clarify. I'm asking would I be the a-hole for asking them to consider a hairpiece that covers a lot of their hair and pulls it back from their face, not telling them this is what I want or they'll be out of the wedding. If they're not comfortable with the hairpiece, then I'd ask how they'd feel if there was editing or colour balance adjustment to the photos to tone it down, and if that's still a no, then we'd just pick black and white photos. We get one professional album with our photography pack, so we'd just make the whole thing black and white photos. We'd still have digital copies of all the photos, colour and not, just the ones we'd hang in our house and stuff would probably be black and white. No one is getting kicked out of the wedding for how they look. No one is going to be forced to do anything. Yeah, that's a bit of a tricky one. I would say people dyeing their hair like that before a wedding need to maybe read the room a little bit, but hey, they can do what they want. Let's see what the comments think. Do you think they won't tone it down for the wedding? Opie says, they have an important event shortly after the wedding, so I was like, oh hey, what are you thinking hair-wise for that event? And they were like, oh, definitely keeping it the way it is now. So I know for a fact this will be the colour it is. If they'd planned to dye it less neon for that event anyway, I was just going to ask if they'd be willing to make the switch before the wedding. Obviously, I cannot ask them to dye their hair. I was only hoping they might want to change it anyway, given they might not want it neon for the other event. But especially since they want it neon for that after the wedding, I know it's neon for sure. Info. Do you have a response ready for if she says no? No a-holes here. Either way, it's your wedding, you can do what you want. But just curious, is this more of a question or an ultimatum? Meaning cover your hair or you're out of the wedding party? Opie says, oh goodness no. If they don't want to cover it, I will ask how they feel about the photographer editing it and toning it down. Unless the consensus is that's also out of line to ask. If they don't like that either, then we'll just pick all black and white versions of photos for the wedding album that's provided as part of our photography package. You're the a-hole. If you're picking your wedding party based on aesthetics, drop this person. If you chose this person based on a relationship, the person comes, hair and all. Explaining yourself is an option, which may bring a favourable outcome. However, it's possible to lose a relationship. Opie says, it's not a matter of being in or out of the wedding party. This person is in the wedding party no matter what. Even if they decided to shave the sides and have a hot pink and black mohawk day of, I'd be irked, but we'd roll with it. I'm asking if it's an a-hole move to ask them to consider covering it. If they don't want to cover it, then we'll just use black and white photos. Yeah, well in that case, I think it's fair to ask. What do you think? Okay, let's go to an update. 6 months later. My original post didn't get a ton of responses, but I really appreciated the people who did respond, and I wanted to share an update, since the situation is fully resolved. While the top comments were no a-holes here or not to the a-hole, I read every comment, and I got a lot of different perspectives, and I continued to think on the situation and reflect on what you all said. I had a realization that I was putting all my stress and anxiety about life and the wedding, as well as my frustration with some unrelated rude and hurtful things my friend had done, into my frustration with the hair situation, because it was an easy thing to be upset about. I did some deep breathing and decided it wasn't worth saying anything about covering the hair. For my mental health, I needed to just let it go, and let everything else go too. My wedding day was amazing, and I'm so glad to not only be married, but also be done with wedding planning and moving, and all of it, because holy heck it was a lot. Some people said I was shallow to even care about the hair or pictures at all, and yeah, I probably am, I accept that. The hair does stand out in a lot of the colour pictures, and the person had their natural roots, which looked absolutely awful, I'm not going to lie. I found it incredibly rude they dyed their hair neon, and then didn't even bother to make sure it was maintained for being in a wedding. But in black and white, everything looks totally fine, and I love black and white pictures anyway. They also got married a bit after my wedding. The BE voice in my head couldn't help but note that they bothered to get their roots done for their own wedding. I complained to my husband a bit in our hotel room after the rehearsal. I got it out of my system, had a great time in their wedding. I guess all this to say, whether or not it would have been an a-hole move to ask them to cover their hair, as people pointed out, it wasn't worth it. The hair did bother me. I am a little shallow, I am a little selfish, but it wasn't as big of a deal as I was making it out to be. It was better to keep all the shallow, selfish and BE thoughts to myself and my husband, work on acceptance and move on. Writing this is my closure. I will spare no more thoughts or energy for the neon hair. Thank you all for helping me find perspective. Honestly, OP's self-awareness is kind of refreshing. OP makes an edit to clarify. Just to clarify some questions I've seen come up, since people have cared enough to message me about it. Why do I think it was rude not to dye their roots? Would I have paid for it? Did I pay for things for them to be in the wedding? Were our weddings far apart enough, etc.? I paid for everything I could to help take off the burden. Dresses, tuxes, hair. I even offered people places to stay if they didn't want to do a hotel. If they'd told me it was a money issue, I'd gladly have paid for the roots to be done too, if they told me they needed help. I know people are in various financial situations. I told my wedding party if there were any financial challenges coming up in being a part of my wedding, to please tell me, and I would help, because I didn't want it to be a burden. I think when you are in a wedding, you're agreeing to maintain your appearance and hygiene for that day. You're going to shower before. You're going to brush your hair and teeth. You're going to do what you need to do to be presentable. In my perspective, if you dye your hair a very attention-grabbing colour that differs dramatically from your natural hair colour, then you make sure the dye job looks decent and well done and not an inch grown out, and that's part of looking presentable for a formal event. The weddings were months apart. They got the roots touched up not too long after my wedding, and then again the weekend of their wedding. I felt it was rude because it was clear the person did consider it something important to do for other events in their life, just not my wedding, and that to me shows a lack of care, especially when again I would have paid for it. Additionally, I was in their wedding and paid for my dress and for their bachelorette party. They did not contribute to or come to mine. And you know what? All that is fine. They're well in their right to do whatever they want with their money and their hair. It's just it all added up, and me, knowing them, knowing their situation, I found it rude. It is what it is with respect to that friend. I am unbelievably happy with my wedding day and my black and white pictures, and I'm so grateful to be married and to have had all my friends by my side for the day, regardless of their hair. Alrighty folks, and that wraps that one up. Yeah, very mature and diplomatic way for OP to go about it. I like that. Also, you can't help but feel like there's some, outside non-specific stuff that this green-haired person's probably done as well, given OP's language around it. But I love the fact that OP was willing to point out her flaws, and that she was a little shallow and maybe a little bit selfish in the scenario. No one's perfect, and we've all been in situations like this. It takes a mature person to own up to it. Alright guys, you know the drill. Give me your thoughts down below, and we'll move on to another story. Alrighty, petty revenge time. This one was written by user OldGuy50, and it's titled, Friends called me a fake engineer. I bought their dinner. My daughter, 17, asked me to post this here, and I'm the dad who does as the women in my life tell me, which is how I ended up in a restaurant tonight with snobs. So the characters, my wife, wife's co-worker 1, and her husband, arrogant engineer 1, AE1. Wife's co-worker 2, and her husband, my CPA, and lastly, arrogant engineer 2 and his wife. Each couple has 2 teenage children with us. We're at a Japanese steakhouse in America where the chefs cook in front of you. Co-worker 1 and arrogant engineer 1 invited all of us for their youngest daughter's birthday, since their daughter is close with their daughter, so the parents are at one table and the teens at another. At the teen table, my daughters, 17 and 14, order sushi appetizers, mocktails, and shrimp with scallops. At our table, the sake is flowing, along with a few top-shelf drinks. My wife and I order our appetizers, drinks, and dinners. We are all paying for ourselves, and I see arrogant engineer 1 and arrogant engineer 2 seem to be in competition for who can spend the most. My CPA and I chuckle at them and stay out of the fray, until arrogant engineer 2 hears my daughter order and says to her, "Careful now, your daddy is only an agricultural engineer. He doesn't make as much as us real engineers." For context, they are structural engineers with bachelor degrees. I'm an agricultural engineer with a PhD. I work for governments, private investors, and several agro corporations. I own my own consulting firm. I help build sustainable reusable gardens, and this work allows me to travel to poorer countries and help them use what they have to start growing their own food. Apparently these men thought all I did was travel to impoverished places and teach people to dig in the dirt. They believed I did all this work for free and therefore made very little money. I'm not rich by any stretch, but I'm comfortable. We don't do extravagance, so we have savings and my wife works. However, in 2023, I was awarded a handsome contract to design tower gardens in several states. It's a 7-figure contract over 3 years. Back to dinner. These guys ask me about the most ridiculous things, like, is it good to grow onions and carrots in the same garden? And were laughing at me and my work until their wives told them to stop. I chalk it up to drunken arrogance and didn't even bother to answer. My CPA was laughing so hard he almost fell out of his chair. Apparently, he's arrogant engineer 1's CPA as well, and knows the ins and outs of both of our finances. Arrogant engineer 1 taunts CPA to tell the table what he brought home last year after bonuses. CPA pulls up the figures on the phone and tells us, it's about 1/3 of what I brought home in 2023. The CPA says, I have yours up, want me to share? I decline, and he nods. Cue another round of taunts. I go to the restroom and find the waiter. I pay for the whole check and leave a generous tip on top of what they've added for a big party. After our sorbet, the waiter thanks me in front of everyone for the tip and wishes everyone a good night. Arrogant engineer 1 and 2 stare at me for a moment. I smile, nod, and tell CPA to tell them my income last year, after which I simply said good night. Petty, absolutely. Gratifying? Damn right. Haha, yeah, serves them right for talking about salaries. I'd love to see the look on their face when the CPA tells them. I'm assuming the CPA in this context means the Certified Public Accountant, although I could be wrong. Maybe someone can let me know. Anyways, I'm going to leave that one there. That's all from me today. I hope you guys enjoyed those stories. Thanks for making it to the end, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good day. Cheers.